Of tonight's message is Peace is Power. Peace is power. At the end of 2018, our young adult staff gathered at my house like we typically do, and we plan out 2019. We try to get ahead, and as a team, we really felt like we wanted to unpack the peace of God in our young adult services on Sunday nights, and just what does that mean? How do we apply? How do we expound on this idea? It was an incredible, productive day. We left really encouraged about what God was going to do and how we could unpack it in creative ways. And about a week later, after I finished up the meeting, I was in a study and I was preparing, and I was digging into more of these thoughts and how we could unpack the peace of God and what this would mean for us and how we could relate it to people. And I was putting together sermons and putting together materials. And right in the middle of my preparation that day, I get a very unexpected call from my mom, who lives in Illinois. And she called to give me the unexpected, terrible news that my grandma, whom we're all very close to, had passed away. And it was devastating to hear. And she had been battling with dementia and some other things for years, and it just weighed heavily on me right in the middle as I was preparing for the peace of God. Fast forward about a week later, as I had already made plans to catch a flight to go up to be a part of the funeral. The night before the flight to go to my grandmother's funeral, I am out with our staff for a Christmas party. We were out at a restaurant and we were eating dinner. And we chose to stay for some dessert, so we're eating some dessert. And the manager comes over to our table, and we're having fun, and we're laughing, and it's just a great end-of-the-year moment for us. And the manager comes over with a little notepad, and he's got some things written on it, and he says, "Excuse me, does anyone at this table have the license plate HZL?" And my heart just begins to sink. And I'm like, I should probably raise my hand, but I really don't want to raise my hand right now. And I'm just like, "That's my car." And he's like, "I'm sorry, sir, but your car was broken into out in our parking lot." And I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me." And so I walk out to the parking lot, and sure enough, my back window of my car was busted in. And the person had took my work bag. And in my work bag, that's all they took. They just snatched my work bag. In my work bag was my laptop, my Bible, my journal. So someone got a free Bible, and hopefully someone read some promises, and someone. But all of my work was in there. All of my peace of God material. All of my peace of God, the Prince of Peace, the peace that surpasses understanding, the peace of God is so powerful. All of these messages, all this material, everything I had prepared, stolen. The night before, I am going to a funeral. I've had a couple weeks to prepare and to sit on this idea, but I've come to realize that it was exactly what I needed to preach on the peace of God. Because this is what I've learned and am learning. That the peace of God is not the absence of problems. The peace of God is the awareness of His presence and the trust in His promise. I'll say that again. The peace of God, friends, is not the absence of problems. It's the awareness of His presence. And it's the absolute trust in His promise. You see, there's a path. Luke did not record that Jesus would guide us on the path to peace, but the path of peace. It's a big difference. You see, if it's the path to peace, that means I have to travel somewhere to get peace. It means that peace it assumes that a person holds my peace, or a position holds my peace, or a vacation or a cruise holds my peace. But this isn't what Luke records. Luke records that Jesus is actually guiding us to the path of peace. You see, peace, friends, isn't a destination or a feeling. Peace, according to this verse, is a path that we must often, when our cars get broken into, and when we face loss, and when we face a bad doctor's report, and when we're having marital struggles, and we're having our kids not acting right. We must choose this path of peace. Matthew 7:14, Jesus says, small is the gate and narrow is the path that leads to life. What is he talking about? Who is he talking about? If you look at the context, Jesus is describing himself as the gate. Jesus is describing himself as what? A path. Jesus is saying the path has come to you. The angels would say, peace has come, peace on earth. But the good news is this peace isn't from earth. This peace is a supernatural peace. This peace is from the kingdom of heaven. Peace came as a person. And Jesus says, I am the path to peace. And this world can't give you peace like I can give you. It's a powerful path. Because our world will offer us a lot of paths to peace. The money path, power path, relational path. All these paths get set out before us, and many of us, including myself, we hang on these paths for a long time, hoping that they would somehow lead us to true life and true peace and true satisfaction, only to get there and realize, that promotion just didn't give me that peace. That person just didn't give me that peace, that dollar bill, that bank account increasing. I'll even go further to say this. Sometimes even getting our prayers answered often may not give us peace. I've seen a person battling with cancer have supernatural peace. Are they healed? No, but they're on a path. And they are leaning into that path. And they are trusting that path. See, this path is the path of peace. Jesus said, I am the path of peace. He is describing himself, and he is saying, this world didn't give it to you and offer it to you like I can, and this world can't take it away. This is a powerful peace. We don't have to wait for peace. We don't have to look to buy peace. Peace came to us. Peace is available in every season and in every circumstance. We just have the great opportunity to choose it. The question isn't if it's available. The question tonight is, are you walking on it? Are you walking in peace? Are you walking in peace? Because a lot of things will try to push you off the path. A lot of things will try to steal your peace. But this is the reality of what Jesus is saying. The world can't take it away, but you can give it away. You can give your peace away to a whole lot of things, or you can get on the wrong path. But there is only one path that leads to eternal, true peace for our souls. And I'm believing that in 2019 as a church, that you as an individual will step into a new power. And this power is this peace that only Jesus can bring you, choosing to stay on this path. It makes you a powerful person, doesn't it? Because regardless of if I get that promotion or not, regardless if I have that relationship work out or not, regardless if that prayer gets answered or not, where am I? I am on a supernatural, powerful path, and it is called the peace of God, and it is Jesus himself that I'm leaning into, and it's his promises that I stand on. It is a powerful path. Jesus himself is this peace that we can lean into. Let me ask you an honest question. You don't have to answer it out loud, but what's the source of the stress in your life right now? Is it the bank account? Is it your manager, job, boss situation? Is it your marriage? Is it your kids? Is it that dude that is just trolling you on Instagram and causing a whole lot of drama? Is it college debt? I don't know what's causing the stress. What is the stress? Where's it coming from? What's the source of the stress in your life? Just think about it, because we all have something in our life right now. And we all have something, or we have someone, okay, let's be honest, that is causing the stress to increase, the anxiety to increase, the fear maybe to creep in. Here's what I want us to think about. Whatever you see as the source of your stress will determine where you seek for your peace. I'll say that again. Whatever you consider as the source of your stress will determine where you seek after for your peace. For example, if money is the source of my stress, then I need money to change for me to have peace. If kids are the source of my stress right now, then I'm hoping those kids will start acting right before I can get peace. If that dude or that girl, that person that neighbor is the source of my stress, then I need them to change before I get peace. See, we all can fill in the blank because we've all said it. When I get out of debt, I'll have peace. Oh, if I could just get married, I'll have peace. If I could just get into that job that I want, then I'll have peace. If that person would just shut their mouth, then I'll have peace. But what if Jesus is proposing to us in the Gospels that we don't need anything to change for us to experience peace? What if you didn't need any of those things to actually experience peace and have peace in your soul? What if you didn't need anything to change in your life right now to experience the peace that your soul longs for and that we all pay a lot of money for and we all go hunting and searching for all the time? What if you didn't need anything? This is exactly what the peace of God offers us. That we don't need our circumstances to be peaceful for us to be at peace. And tonight I want to encourage you to check your source, to realize what path you're on, to see what are some things that you need to reevaluate in your life, because the good news is when you get on this path where it doesn't matter what changes or what doesn't change. It doesn't matter what I have or what I don't have. It doesn't matter what prayers are answered and what prayers aren't answered. I am on the path of peace. I am trusting God. I am believing on his promise. I am leaning into his presence. That makes you a powerful person, because the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. Look at your neighbor and say, peace is power. Peace is power, my friend. Sometimes God doesn't rescue us or remove things from our lives for us to experience peace. Sometimes your car gets broken into. Sometimes you lose someone close to you. Instead of all the time removing these things, sometimes God just gives us himself. And he gives us his promises. And he gives us his availability. And he says, this whole time, as you're going through this stuff, the path of peace has been available to you. The path of peace has come to earth, and it is open, and it is there, and it is available. The Apostle Paul writes something very profound in Philippians chapter 4. He writes one of the most quoted verses we know, and we love it, and it's powerful. And he writes that the great peace of God is available to anyone facing anxiety and fear and worry. It's a powerful, well-quoted verse that we often look to. But what's interesting about this verse is Paul is not writing from his living room couch. Paul is not tweeting from a spa. Paul is in a dark place. Paul is actually in prison. He's got no friends around him. He's got no money, not even a little bit of money to stress about. This man's got nothing to his name. He's sitting in prison. He is hungry. He is lonely. And he has the audacity to write about the peace of God. Friends, he's understood something. Come on, I don't know who I'm preaching to tonight, but he's understood something very powerful. That there is a path that penetrates any prison cell. There is a path that penetrates and comes to any financial crisis. There is a path that comes into any marriage struggle. There is a path that is available in the darkest spaces and seasons of your life. Friends, it is the path of peace, and Paul has found it. The question wasn't, is peace available to Paul in prison? It was he going to choose the path that was sitting there the whole time? You have a path that's available for you to choose right now in the hardest spaces of your life. No matter how hard the circumstances is, there is a path that comes to you. There is no place of despair that this path doesn't reach. It's his presence. Jesus comes into those spaces of our life that we feel like nothing could come to. And he sits and he waits and he's available. And we get the opportunity to choose it, to walk in it, and to stay on this path. This path reaches to every place. There's no place where there isn't this path. So how do we stay on this path? When we're faced with problems and storms and anxiety mounts, Mark chapter 4, we see the disciples and they are on mission with Jesus to go to a certain place to minister. And as they're on this boat, very well-known story, a storm brews up on the water. And as the storm brews up, the disciples, using logic, begin to try to fix the boat that is being overcome by water. It's falling apart. So this is what they do for a living. So naturally, they're going to go to their plan, right? This is our plan. This is what we do. We fix the boat. If things are happening to the boat and it's breaking apart, we grab our tools, we grab the glue, and we put it together. And I don't know how long they did this, but someone realizes this isn't working. And the storm is getting bigger. And Jesus is in the boat. And Jesus isn't working on the boat. Jesus is sleeping. And so someone goes in and says, excuse me, we're dying over here. And we're struggling. We could use a hand. We could use a hand. We have a plan and we could use a hand. And so Jesus gets up and Jesus doesn't address the plan and Jesus doesn't pick up a wrench. Jesus speaks to the storm. Jesus says, be still. Some translation says, peace, be still. And he looks at the disciples and he says, what happened to your faith? Why are you so afraid? You see, there's a lot of things here that are very intriguing to me. And I want to encourage you with one thought out of this story, a couple thoughts actually. The first thing is this: sometimes we lose our peace and we waver off this path of peace because we're holding on to our plans too tightly. And sometimes our plans can become problems. And sometimes when we're not seeing God answer our prayers or we're not seeing God move to our plan quick enough, we get off this. Sometimes we're just trying to keep the boat afloat and we're doing the logical thing, which is good. Sometimes we're just working really hard to patch the boat of our life as it's sinking and we have peace available to us, but because we're working our plan and we're looking to ourselves first, anxiety and fear is creeping in. And it's sinking our hearts and it's sinking our souls because we've looked to ourselves first and our plans first. What if when we're waiting for God to answer our prayer or to do what we expect him to do, because some of us have already got the plan for God made up, right? Like, God, I'm praying for this dude and this is how I want to meet him and this is where I want him to be and this is how I want, like, you got the plan. But sometimes when that plan isn't coming when you hope it to come, we get discouraged and we lose our peace. We step off. Could I present you something? Maybe God is working on something bigger. Maybe God isn't, see, you're wanting him to seal the boat and he's wanting to speak to a storm. You see, God's solution is bigger and God's solution is greater. God is always wanting to do a bigger thing. And so while you're panicking and when you're overwhelmed with anxiety because you are holding your plans too tightly, you're looking to yourself first, when things start to break loose, maybe God isn't moving the way you think he's going to move because he's working on a bigger thing. And that bigger thing could be your character. The bigger thing could be your trust. The bigger thing could be that husband that isn't ready, but God's got to shape him a little bit before he comes to you. Maybe that girl isn't prepared yet. Maybe that promotion isn't ready yet because there's some things that God needs to add to that job. Maybe he needs to add some things to the salary and the benefit package. What if God is working on something bigger and you're wanting him to immediately respond to your plan? Hold your plans loosely and hold his promises tightly and stay on the path of peace. Come on, if you believe that peace is power, give him a shout of praise tonight. He's a good God, and he's always doing bigger. He's always doing bigger. Never misinterpret God being silent to God being still. God is working on something. Don't fixate on your plans. Sometimes he's going to answer your prayers differently. I could imagine the disciples going, hey man, grab a wrench. Like, we got some super glue in the back. Seal the boat. And Jesus doesn't even address what they first would address. He addresses the storm. The second thing is this. I believe that oftentimes we allow fear to push us to places that are unhealthy. Jesus would, at the end, address their fear and their faith to make his point. My question to you is, where has fear pushed you? When things begin to unravel and when things begin to not play out how you thought, or when a storm comes in your life, or when kids are acting crazy, or things aren't working out at work, and you begin to feel anxiety that we all feel. Because Jesus essentially is not saying, don't have fear. He is saying, what has fear pushed you to? What have you allowed fear to push you to? Because fear pushed them to themselves and their plan, which logically we all do, but Jesus is saying, I want you to pursue me first. Wake me up, include me in on it, and then proceed. And I may have us patch the boat, or I may speak to the storm, but it's about order here. And God is looking at our order in our life. Are we seeking first his promises and then working our plan? I'll encourage you with this. Plan on the promise, not the other way around. Oftentimes we get it twisted. We like to plan and then say, all right, God, bless it. And that's cool. That's cool. I don't need to balance with y'all tonight, but oftentimes our plans can become problems, right? What I'm encouraging us to do in 2019 is to seek first the path of peace, seek first the presence of God and God's promises, and then submit our plans and submit our decisions to God and what he would want us to do. Maybe he would shift some things. Maybe he would change our hearts. Maybe he would open up a door. Who knows? And then proceed and move as he guides you. Plan on the promise, not the other way around. You see, the thing about fear is, it's not a question of if you face fear, it's what are you doing with your fear? What are you doing with your fear tonight? Are you trying to take care of things in your own hands, or are you trusting Jesus first? Are you leaning into his presence? Are you leaning into who he is and what he can do? Don't give your problems your peace. Don't give your problems your peace. So here's what I want to kind of wrap up with. What if you didn't have to wait for problems to shake loose in your life to get on the path of peace? What if it was your first choice? Have you ever been on a plane and there's turbulence and you're sitting around some people you don't know and you're wondering, like, do people know how to pray, or do they want to pray? And all you got to do is see that plane just start shaking, and all of a sudden you see a whole lot of people start praying. Please God, please God, please God. Fear is pushing them to a path. Have you ever dropped your cell phone, face down, screen down? Oh, don't act like you don't pray about everything. Oh, Jesus, I pray that phone is not cracked. In Jesus' name, please, Jesus. Love me. I love you. I love you. Don't act like you've never done it. That phone drops, Jesus, please, I'll serve you. I'll go to church. I'll tithe. I'll do whatever you. How about when you're driving on 59 and you're going about 10 or 15 over the speed limit and you see that cop and all of a sudden, Lord Jesus, I'll love you so much. Shabba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Lord, I bind every radar technology in Jesus' name. Lord, I pray. We got some praying saints in here when the radar gun comes out. Jesus, I'm sorry. It's my fault. It's my fault, Lord. I won't do it again. And what happens in these moments is our fear or our trouble pushes us to this path, pushes us to pray. It pushes us to the promise of God. What if we started the day off here? What if we didn't need anything to shake in our life for us to be on this path of peace? That's what I am presenting to us tonight. Jesus says, I came to you and I am available, and I know you got a lot of stuff shaking loose and I know you got a great plan, but how about seeking my presence first at the beginning of the day? And taking the first 15 minutes of your day, getting into a quiet space in a coffee shop or in your living room and cracking open your Bible and taking a journal and saying, all right, God, I got a lot of stuff that's worrying me. I got a lot of stuff that's breaking loose in my life. And there may be some things that are going to come my way. But I'm going to choose the path of peace first. I'm not going to wait for things to pull or to push me towards it. God, I'm going to stay there. I'm going to get on it right away. I think there's a lot of people here. Maybe you're a new believer. And I can't overemphasize the power of prayer. You see, often our prayer life dictates the peace in our life. They go hand in hand. There's a couple verses that will go on the screen that I want you to take a look at. Isaiah 26:3 says, you will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Philippians 4 verse 6, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. What if you took 15 minutes? Go buy a Bible, go buy a journal that you love, and you just write down some thoughts. First 15. What if as a church we made this a priority? Where we made prayer something that we chose to do, we weren't forced to do, or we weren't pushed to do. But we said, I'm gonna choose the path of peace. And I'm gonna fight to stay there throughout the day. And we're gonna grow. So the peace of God is not the absence of problems, it's the awareness of his presence and the trust in his promises. And the other way we can stay in peace is knowing that God's got the solution long before you had the problem. I said, God's got the solution long before you had the problem. I've told this story before, but I think it just illustrates this idea so well. I was boating with some friends, and I remember getting off the boat, and my wife was gonna stay on the boat and continue to go boating throughout the day. And I remember as I stepped onto the pier, it was a little small part of the pier and there was water behind it, but I didn't really recognize the water behind the pier. I just stood here, and my wife pushed off the boat with her friends, and I'm standing there on the pier needing to get to my car and run some errands that day that were important. And as summer begins to drift off into the water, I begin to check my pockets for my car keys, and I realize that Summer had the keys on the boat as she's floating away. And so I'm like, Summer, I need the keys. And she's like, she's freaking out. She's looking all around the boat, and I'm like, just throw them to me. She takes the keys and she just chucks them at me. And they just fly over my head so slowly. And I'm a white man, so I can't jump. And they just go right over the tips of my fingers. I mean, I didn't even have time to jump. And they just float over, and they just fall right into the lake. Right into the water that was directly behind this pier. And they just sank all the way down to the bottom, about 6 or 7 feet of water. Just so, I couldn't see, just muddy water. And I look up at Summer and she's like, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And as soon as I look up at a friend and I'm trying to figure out the plan, and I'm trying to figure out, like, do I jump in after him? I don't even know what to do. All my keys in her, I have no spare key. These are all my work keys. It's everything. My world is sinking down to the bottom of the lake. And I look over, and no joke, on the pier of this lake is a couple. I've never seen this couple before in my life. And they are throwing black ropes out into the lake, about 5 feet. They're just tossing it out there. And at the end of these black ropes are circle thick magnets. And they are trying to fish for metal objects on the bottom of the lake, and then they're pulling them up, and then they're throwing them out. And he looks over at me right when I lose my keys, and he's like, hey, you need any help? I'm like, absolutely, I need some help. And he's like, here, try mine. I throw this magnet I just start throwing it out, and sure enough, after a few minutes, I snag the keys with this magnet, pull it up, get the keys off, look at Summer, and I'm like, I got the keys. I've never seen this couple in my life, and let alone, I've never seen a couple fishing with a magnet at the bottom of a lake ever in my life in any body of water. You can choose to believe what you want, but I believe that couple was on an assignment. That couple was assigned by God. God had the solution long before I had the problem. I was praising my way to the car. I was praising my way home, and it just dawned on me. God is a miracle working God, and God has the solution long before you had things even begin to sink in your life. So what's sinking in your world? For real. Finances, your marriage, you're struggling, you're facing something physically, a sickness, and the enemy would love to steal your peace. I don't know what is sinking, and I don't know where you feel like your relationships are. If you feel like they're just in the deep, dark place right now, can I encourage you? Number one, God has a solution. And number two, the path of peace reaches the darkest, deepest spaces in our life. His peace is available for you tonight. You can choose it. Paul in a prison cell can write about it. And not just write about it, but say, this peace is overwhelming. It surpasses understanding. I can be in a prison and I can have internal peace. I can be going and facing cancer, but I can have internal peace. I can have struggles and have things not work out, and I can have internal peace because the world didn't give it, and the world, friends, can't take it away. Friends, this is a peace that doesn't make sense. It's supernatural. It's powerful. You can get your car broken into, and you can lose someone, and you can, listen, I've been on vacations and not had peace. And I've stood at my grandma's funeral, and I've had supernatural peace. It's a peace that surpasses understanding. It's the peace of God that is offered to us tonight and is offered to you wherever you're at, whether you're here or you're watching online. The peace of God is available for you to rest in, to lean into. Trust him tonight. Lean into him tonight. Relinquish your plans to him tonight, and watch him do what you never thought he could do.